Assalamu alaikum, students. Globalization is one of the most important topics of English essay. And examiner has asked this topic from many dimensions. For example, globalization, learning to live together, pros and cons of globalization. Developing world must be able to reap the fruits of international trade. So this is about the economic globalization. Then globalization has created winners and losers. uh, Global politics and international relations. So there are many aspects. The examiner may ask about the economic aspect or the political aspect or even the cultural aspect. And nowadays, examiner is relating the issue of globalization with the topic of globalization with supply chain crisis as well. Now, in all of these topics, there are some of the suggestions that are of universal character and that are important for all states. Uh, Students are very much confused about the suggestions that they need to give for dealing any dimension of the globalization. So I have come up with some of the suggestions that can be used in almost all of the categories of topics related to globalization. First of those suggestions is uh, that human development should be or upgradation, reskilling or upskilling of the workforce should be the foundational strategy for every state. What's the reason for writing it as a first point? Globalization is an opportunity for many states knocking at their doors, and at the same time, globalization is a threat for many states. Now, what will make globalization an opportunity or what will make globalization a threat for states? That depends upon the level of education or training or skill of the workforce in any particular state. Pakistan or any other state, Afghanistan or any state of the Africa cannot complain that whenever my product is in competition with the products of Singapore or Taiwan or China or US or Malaysia or Indonesia or Switzerland or for that matter any other developed country. Whenever in the global market my product is competing with with the products of some other countries, so I lose competitive advantage. So here I want to ask a question from all the states that are not developed in technology or in manufacturing or in services sector. You can compete every country, every developed country by upgradation of your workforce. So if any state wants to make globalization an opportunity knocking at its door, an opportunity for economic development. So the first step that every state needs is upgradation of its workforce. You cannot complain that the product of any specific country had competitive advantage over my product. So this is the first step. Second step, a, a serious problem of globalization was destruction of the indigenous cultures, destruction of the local cultures. And there are reasons to believe that globalization was not in search of some globalization as a policy by the states was not a move for promoting multiculturalism. In the end, it proved to be homogenization of the cultures or Americanizations of the cultures in extreme cases. So, when critics say that globalization, instead of promoting respect and diversity of cultures, multiculturalism, globalization is responsible for homogenization of cultures, which have resulted into xenophobia and cultural wars and hatred for other cultures. And this racism or xenophobia can be seen in Britain, in US, in India, and in any other states, any developed states which are basically having people from different countries, Europe as well. So another important aspect where you can suggest solutions of globalization is promoting respect for cultures or promoting unity in diversity instead of cultural homogenization. This is another very pertinent suggestion when it comes to providing the solutions of globalization. Then there is another aspect that global financial institutions have been responsible for creating trade debts, creating debt nets. These institutions have created economic inequality. These institutions are responsible for the loss of sovereignty of states. These institutions are responsible for controlling the economic reins of the small states or underdeveloped states. So another very important suggestion can be just fair and inclusive global financial institutions. If global financial institutions become able to promote inclusiveness and uh, they are making such laws which are basically for the mutual benefit of states, then the issues of economic inequality and economic exploitation of the third world can be resolved. Although it is some of these points can be wish list, but again, these are the universal solutions. Then another important way forward, a remedial measure for resolving the issues of globalization can be economic cooperation on the basis of win-win benefit. This is basically a model by this is a model of Chinese economic cooperation and engagement, where you cannot where you do not use coercive measures, where you do not control the economy of the small states. You try to clinch such deals which are mutually beneficial for both states. Or even if China is not using this model of trade or economic cooperation, at least this is the solution. This is a solution that examiner cannot uh, fail to accept. So economic cooperation and trade on mutually win-win benefit. Then respect for sovereignty of state, or uh, respect for sovereignty and internal affairs of states should not be interfered by the developed states. This is another aspect, that if you want to connect with the world, and if you want that all the issues of this globalized world are resolved, where interconnectedness and interdependence in the long run becomes mutually beneficial, then the bigger states need to avoid interference in the affairs of the small states. Then another suggestion can be very pertinent in this respect, and that is, if EU is going for cooperation, then this is considered as a model of globalization. But if third world or less powerful states are trying to connect with each other, this phenomena is named as regionalization by the West. But the third world needs to realize that regionalization is in their own benefit. Instead, for Pakistan or for Afghanistan or for Nepal or Bhutan or the states of Latin America or Africa, instead of building their links to some other continents or some powerful countries of some other continents, it is better for them to trade with their neighbors. It is a time tested formula for resolving conflicts with the neighbors and for uh, economic benefit that are mutually beneficial for the states. So if Pakistan builds its relations with its neighboring countries, or any African state builds its countries with the neighboring states. It is better for its economy and politics and security. So, first moving towards regionalization and then globalization. This is another important uh, solution for the issues of globalization. So regionalization should be the first priority, or the first step. When you are well integrated in your region, then you can move, then you can think about uh, building your links with the countries of other continents, and then you can think about exporting your products uh, with the country, exporting your products at a larger geographical expanse. So when I would be trading with the developed state, I would automatically be facing the issue of loss of competitive advantage. And the best I can do is, I would be, as a state, I would be exporting my raw materials and getting finished products from that country. And this would create uh, an equal economic exchange. So if I want to keep economic exchange equal and beneficial, I need to first integrate myself in the region, uh, and then I need to move towards globalization. The same thing can be expressed in these words as well, that we know globalization, we know localization, and between globalization and localization come glocalization. So we need such approaches which are in favor of glocalization. We are globalized as well, we are localized as well. So we need to act locally and think globally. This is another suggestion. Then never estimate the power of uh, civil society. If there is some biggest hope for resolving issue of war, for resolving issue of political polarization, for resolving the issues of democracy or geopolitics or climate change, civil society is the biggest hope for humanity for positive change. So civil society can play a proactive role in reducing the backlash against globalization and making it a phenomenon truly beneficial for all the states of the world. And in the end, uh, if we want to stay globalized, we want to stay less hostile to each other, and we want to work for a shared future and shared benefit of the humanity, then there is one other way as well. The world needs to promote multilateralism at every cost, and that multilateralism should be centered or focused on resolving the issues of global intensity. There are many issues such as poverty, such as extremism and terrorism, or pandemics. So these issues are not of local character, or they are not limited to some states. They are of global nature. They are of global extent. So if the world becomes united for the resolution of the issues of global nature or extent, the multilateralism should be focused on resolving issues of global importance. That is another way to keep the world united, integrated, and focused for benefit of humanity. Thank you very much.